This is an interview by Linda Jackson on Wednesday the 16th of July with Mrs. Vera Dudley. Can you give me your full name, place and date of birth?
Yes, Vera Dudley. I was born in Aspel, near Wigan, on the 11th of April 1935.
Thank you. And can you tell me who you're going to talk about today?
I'm going to talk about my great uncle Thomas Seddon, who was my grandfather's brother.
And do you know his full name, date and place of birth?
I know his full name is just Thomas Seddon, and he was born, I'm sorry, I need to look at the census for that.
That's okay.
Maybe he was, I should have worked that out sometime. Fred was 20 in 1901. That's right. So he would be born in 1896. No.
Yeah.
No, 1894. 1894. Yes, that's right.
And do you know where he was born?
In Aspel, I think, at that address, 540 Bolton Road, Aspel.
And can you tell me a bit about his family history?
I know that after he left school, or even when he was still part-time school, he became a miner, because at that time in Aspel there were lots of small collieries and he worked as a miner. Then the next thing I know is that in 1917 he was married to Betsy Parr, and they were married in New Springs Independent Methodist Chapel. Not sure where they went to live. On something we've seen on the internet said that East Wigan, or Wigan East, well, that to me would be either Ince or Hindley. But he lived many, many years in Ince, so it's possible that this Betsy Parr, who was his first wife, he and she maybe settled in Ince. But in 1917 was when when he went out and when he went on to war, I should say. But I have a feeling that he was a conscientious objector. So I'm wondering if there is a tribunal anywhere, because he was a devout Christian, but he must have chosen to go into the medical corps, because that's what he was in the war. He was a stretcher bearer in the First World War. Never talked about it at all. I don't know anything else about his war service, except that my mother has kept all these letters from the First World War. I found them, well, in fact, she probably showed them to me. They were in a box at her house, which I then, when she died, I took them to me, to my house. And I found them fascinating, except the only thing I can find that when he talks about the First World War is that he wants to come home and he wishes it were over. And he talks about the weather and things they had to eat, but nothing about the experiences at all. I never heard him say. His first wife died in 1924, and he married again Annie Matthews, who I knew very well. Don't know what date they were married, and they definitely lived in Ince. My memories of him go from when I would be about 3 or 4 until he died in the 1970s, I think it was. I'm not sure what date he died, but he was always a lovely, gentle, intelligent man. A very sincere Christian, and lived by those principles all his life. He was a loving, devoted husband. He used to do everything for her, all kinds of things. But he was a very well-loved brother, and he was definitely my favourite uncle. When I was a child, he often came to our house and used to have to come for tea. And they used to go to the chapel at Dickinson Lane, and they'd stay for tea. And there'd be other cousins and my brother and I, and he always made us laugh. He had a lovely sense of humour. In fact, all the Seddon men, most of them, apart from Uncle Si, they had a terrific sense of humour, considering the hard life they had when they were young. But I never heard him talk, as I say, about the First World War. But these are the letters and the cards, which I've kept, and I think they're very interesting.
Did you mention to me previously that he thought he might have been a lay preacher?
He was a lay preacher.
Right.
Yes, he was a lay preacher in the Independent Methodist Church.
Mm.
So, but he didn't do a lot in his later years, but he was always a worshipper. And they belonged, when they lived in Inston, Westwood Independent Methodist Church, which I think is still there. I think it's still open. I've not heard that it's closed.
Okay,
So,
well, thank you for that introduction to him. Can you tell us a bit? So these are the letters that he wrote. Well, that one's from Germany, 19.
that's a later one, isn't it? Yes. That's 1918. That's 1918. That one is too. Can you see a date on that one?
That's 1918 as well.
Yes, yeah. There may have been some more, but these are the only ones that have been kept.
And can you tell us a bit more about the kind of content, or would you like to read? Is there any one of these that you would like to read?
Would you like me to read the Lancashire dialect one?
Oh yes, please.
Yeah, this is the one. This is June 10, 1918. And she must have had a pet name, my mother, because it says, Dear Lizanne. Now, maybe that was to somebody else, I don't know, but it was with my mother's things. Thanks muchly for the pretty letter I got t'other day. I had a good laugh about it, especially when you told me about our Ralph starting courting. By Vacrin, she must be pretty, if she's as nice as Tommy Canty. I'm fain your father started preaching, and I'm fain he had a greatly fine day for it. I mean sermons. I'm glad you invited my wife to your house for her tea. That's come to our house for the tea some day. I'm greatly fain that's passed t'other exam that we're talking about. I'll bet little Dora were a swank with a new frock on. I'll give you all a good hugging when I come one. I'm very sorry to hear about Mary Bond. I didn't know she'd been ill so long. I have heard that how John Green is dead too, and about his wife starting courting again. I couldn't help but laugh about your mother telling Maud Hyam she could come to your petty if she'd give her a pot of jam. Where, I can't quite read that, something to posse out here. By Crin, out Mrs. Green is soft, telling thy mun come again with some more eggs. I fancy I shall talk funny too when I get 86 year old. I'm fain you have bed and health, and wish you were all a Blackpool. I wish I were there too, but I'm fain I'm all right too, and nout for out a bed. There's been a change in weather out here. It's been raining today, but I'm away from fireworks, so I'm all right. Though I think that's all this time. I like the letters. I'll tell thee this time. I like the letters, and I'll tell thee I hope they'll keep writing. They make me laugh. Then, that is difficult. We'll have, and then we'll have a prater pie supper when he comes home, it means. I hope they'll be able to read this as it's in your own language. Ask the father, would he like to have been old lad's side? I don't know what he means. At somewhere. Now, with every good wish for y'all, remain your loving Uncle Tommy.
Oh, that's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah. Could you understand it?
I can understand most of it.
Can you?
Yeah, most of it.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't read odd words. It's because it's all been done in indelible pencil, you see. I mean, that is extremely difficult to read.
And so do you know exactly where he was when he wrote these, where he was?
No, there's no indication.
Right.
We know that, I think he was in Belgium at some point, maybe he was in France. His service record would tell us that, wouldn't it?
Yes, it should do. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
because I would hope to be able to see that.
Yeah.
I've got one of his brother's service record, because Philip brought it this morning, one of these here. But no idea. And I really would be interested to know if when they started to conscript and he said no, he didn't wish to fight, then he must have gone before a tribunal to decide.
Because I remember when we chatted on the phone that
yes.
the tribunal records for Lee are the only ones in the area that have survived, and that was specifically for Lee.
Yeah.
Just for
so
that
there aren't
area,
any?
So it's I don't think you'll be able to find that information.
But this cousin of mine agrees that this is possible because weren't there 4 categories?
Yes, there were different. Yeah.
Yes, you could go in the medical corps, you could work towards the war effort here in England, or you could go across to France and help the French people, or you could do nothing at all, in which case you were sent to prison. Yeah. I saw a programme on television which fascinated me about that.
Yeah, it's quite brave of him to be a conscientious objector. Obviously, you know a little bit about what he did when he was actually in the at the front, at the supporting behind the lines, I suppose. Have you got any family stories about him or anything relating to his wartime experiences?
None at all.
Nothing.
Sorry, not a one. No.
Do you want to tell us a bit about this document then, about when he travelled to Burma and was it through India?
Yes.
During the
it's a journal, and it says my journey and experiences to India. When he set off from Gosport near Portsmouth to India in 1917, I think, on the 4th of December 1917, and they were on board a Royal Navy ship called Londonderry. They were packed like herrings and they had to sleep anywhere. Having read it carefully, I think it must have been a very difficult journey. I noticed that the thing that upset him most was sailing through the Red Sea, I think, and there was a British ship sunk, and he even mentions it right at the very end, that at least they had all survived all this journey, and he was sad that all these other people. It's too complicated to say everything that went on, but it is fascinating because he tells you everywhere they stopped and what the sea was like, and they were in Malta. Yes, they landed at St. John's Bay, Malta, on Sunday morning of the 23rd of December, 2 days before Christmas, and they stayed in that bay over Christmas. I could have managed better if it had been Christmas every day. We got a bit more food that day, 2 oranges, 1 apple and 3 packets of cigs. It was the worst Christmas I ever had in my life. Nowhere to go and no tasty bits of food, which one looks forward to at such times. There's a piano on the ship for the use of the troops, so we had a concert amongst ourselves that made things a bit better. We got a little plum pudding, just to taste. It was very good, what bit it was, but we couldn't have a second helping. On Boxing Day, the officers gave money prizes for sports on the top deck, such as 3-legged race, a pillow fight, and it passed the afternoon on. You wouldn't have thought it was Christmas time had you seen the troops bathing. It was just like summertime in England.
That must be quite a culture shock, mustn't it, coming from Wigan?
An enormous culture shock, yeah. They couldn't bath or shower, or they'd just have a quick wash, I suppose, in a bowl. The troop ship I mentioned set sail with us again on 27th of December they set sail for Port Said. Also 3 destroyers. We were told it would be Sunday or Monday when we got to Port Said, and that it was the most dangerous part of the journey. The old ship kept tugging away through the waves. My pal and I slept on the top deck the first night. It was amusing to see the troops sleeping all over the deck. I guess they thought it would be safer on top. To make things worse, all lights were out at sunset every day, so you can imagine what it was like. On Sunday morning, about 5 o'clock, the other troop ship left us. Also one of the destroyers, they were bound for Alexandria, it should be. They had not far to go when they left us. So 2 destroyers came with us. It was a beautiful morning, the sea was nice and calm. In fact, too calm, because of the submarines. I had never seen the sea so calm before. It was just like a duck pond. We were 24 hours sail from Port Said at that time, and still in the danger zone. We had to change our course in case they were following, that's the submarines, until it went dark, and then have another smack at us. I know that one of the ships was sunk. I can't find where it was. There's such an awful lot.
Mm. How long did it actually take for him to get all the way to Burma then?
It tells you at the end. Well, it tells you when they arrived.
28th
Just
January.
say yes, that's it.
So
Then there's a gap. It's just 7 o'clock on Monday night, the 28th of January 1918, when we reached Main Mile Station, and that's in Burma. The 5th Hampshire Regiment band met us at the station, and we marched straight to our bungalow. This is what struck me. And believe me, we were all pleased to see a nice bed waiting for us, because we had to sleep in all positions throughout the journey, which saw just 8 weeks from leaving Gosport on the 4th of December and reaching here on the 28th of January. We were very fortunate we reached here with only 2 men, short out of many. Both of them were kept in the hospital in Calcutta, and then we don't know what was the matter with them. But then, thank the Lord, we had landed safe, and I don't know what the other word is. We would mourn, I presume, the poor lads on the Aragon, the ship that went down. I often wondered if you saw it in the papers and thought it was our ship. I must bring my experiences of the journey to a close. I took a close interest in it from start to finish, and what I have not mentioned, and it seems to have been lost now. But, it is fascinating, especially the journey across India, where they were on the train, and the Maharaja and his wife and his entourage were on the ship, and he tells you that every station the train stopped, they would give them money, and they would have oranges bought for them and fruit and all kinds of things. And they were very generous looking after these British soldiers. But he
That's
talks.
quite surprising, isn't it, in a way? I'm just
Yeah.
quite surprised by that.
Well, you think how far it is from Bombay, where they landed, across to Calcutta. It's the whole width of India, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Is there anything else in there that you'd like to read?
I'm just trying to find where he met the Maharaja. It must be further through. He's very, very impressed by the scenery in India. Very impressed. He thought it was really beautiful. That is what struck me. Oh, further on than that. Because the Indians, niggers, It shows the day. And the blacks are a wonderful race and very amusing in their ways.
And you said he never spoke about his wartime experiences, but
never at all.
Did he ever speak about that journey?
No, it was found, this journal was found quite by chance at his youngest sister's house. And the cousin who came this morning, he has the actual document. There we are. We left Bombay Station on the Great Indian Peninsula Railway at 1 p.m. on the 21st of January for Calcutta, which is over 1,000 miles across various and most beautiful country. We got hot water to make tea at the big stations en route, which I'm sure they liked. We got plenty to eat and drink the time we were on the train. Of course, there was bully beef and bread and jam all the way. Mind you, it was good. It was a tea party to what we'd been having on the boat. We saw a lot of the country the first day before it went dark. Every big station the train stopped at, we had a bit of sport with the natives, and then we would give them a song or two. They gathered round us. They seemed to be amazed with us. We stopped at one big station and there were plenty of white people on it. They asked us to sing different songs, which we did. Something about they got coconuts and bananas. They grow all over the place. You can see bananas growing in plenty on the stations. India is a wonderful country. They seem to grow all sorts. You can see the rice, linseed, Indian corn, tobacco, pineapples, peaches and oranges growing in the fields. I didn't see any cotton trees. The black women seemed to work just as hard as the men at any kind of work. In the next carriage to us was an Indian Raja and his wife, and all their native servants. I should say they had 30 men and women servants travelling with them. Both of them were very good to us. They bought us lots of cigs, oranges and cakes at different stations. They did spend a lot of money on us. A Raja is supposed to be very rich in India. The way they spent their money on us, I can believe they had plenty. Just absolutely
amazing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Vera, could you tell us a bit about these pictures, who's seen in those pictures, and perhaps show them to the camera so we can focus?
These are the men concerned with the Seddon family. The father in the middle is Samuel Seddon, and there are 7 brothers and 2 brothers-in-law. And I don't know when this was taken, but round about the beginning or part way through the First World War, I would think. This is a family, the whole family, including the youngest child, which was Alice. This is the eldest daughter, and my grandfather was the eldest son. It was taken, this picture, in the Carnegie Hall in West Horton, and it was the occasion of my great-great-grandmother's funeral, which is my great-grandmother's mother. Her name was Esther Bond, and she lived in West Horton, I think. But they all gathered together, and my mother's cousin was there, and she told me that somebody said to Margaret Seddon, while you're all together, why don't you have your photograph taken? And that is how that came about.
And so can you just point out which one is Thomas?
Yes, Thomas is here.
Right.
There's Thomas.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. And you've got a couple of other items here, postcards.
Yes, we've got the letters and we've got the birthday card dated the May 9th, 1917 to my mother, whose birthday was the 15th of May, so obviously she reached that, she got it in time. This card may be a little early or a little late. I cannot add anything better than the card says, but wish you sincerely a happy birthday, your loving Uncle Tom. And this was sent to my grandmother, Mrs. Jane Seddon, but it says Miss, you know, in those days, you had your husband's initial. from the field post office on the 13th of January 1919. And I think it is a picture of Cologne. I think it's possibly Cologne. Looks as though that might be Cologne Cathedral. I don't really know. That's it.
Okay.
Is that all of them?
Yeah, I think that's everything. So, can you tell me how you feel about your great uncle's experiences in the war? Why did you find this particularly interesting?
I loved him
important?
dearly, always. He was a lovely, lovely man. And to think of what he went through in the medical corps as a stretcher bearer, carrying those horribly injured soldiers, really moves me. And I watched the Scarlet Field, the Crimson Field, and the whole way through it I was thinking of him, because I knew he was experiencing exactly what the television was portraying. Yeah. And I wish I had been able to talk to him about it, but of course we enjoyed his company whenever he was around. He was a lovely man. So I'm really glad that I've got these things. I'm really pleased that somebody else can see them, even though it doesn't tell us anything about his experiences. There's one of the letters that is moving because he says, and it is very poignant, that he really wants to come home and wishes it was all finished.
I bet there's a lot of people that felt like
that. Yes, and they didn't talk about it.
No.
This is why I think we didn't know a lot about what went on. A lot of it was kept from the British people, and when they came home they were so horrendously traumatised by it that they never... And somebody like my Uncle Tom would just try and push it to the back of his mind. So I presume that's what happened.
That's a very interesting story. Is there anything else that you would like to tell us before we finish the interview?
I can't think of anything else, except only to say that how he was a very special person to all of us. He was very attached to his youngest sister, Alice. Yeah.
Hence birthday. Oh no, was that to her, that birthday card?
No, that's my mother. There were two Alices.
Right.
She was Alice Seddon and my mother was Alice Seddon, and there was 5 weeks between them. But I wondered why, what a silly thing to call my mother Alice when there was already one. But I think they hadn't decided then whether she was going to be Esther or Alice, because that was her name, was Esther Alice.
Right.
And I think this is how it happened. Yeah.
That would too.
My mother's cousin had lots of little tales about the boys when they were young and the tricks they used to get up to.
Do you want to tell us any of those?
They used to go into the fields with their bows and arrows and shoot bows and arrows at the geese and things in the field. And Uncle Andrew, this one, he must have been a Tartar, he used to roll, they had a stairs, a very small house, I don't know how they fitted them all in, and he used to roll turnips down the stairs, bump, 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 all the way down.
Why did you do that?
Really, and they had a harmonium in the house, and he used to sit and plonk this harmonium till it drove everybody down, because he couldn't play it. So there were all kinds of things used to go on. This is Beatrice, but her full name is Florence Beatrice Maud, and she was the third child of Margaret and Samuel. And somebody in Aspel said to my great-grandmother, now this is Broad, Lancashire, what you calling her all them names for? Are you not going to have any more? And then she had 7 more. No, 8 more. And she died at 56. And the phrase somebody told me who knew her said she was perfect. Do you know what perfect is? Worn out. Yeah. That's a real Lancashire phrase, perfect. Yeah. Your Uncle Jack would know that living in Tilsley and Atherton. I think I'm exhausted.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for bringing all these in. These are brilliant.